All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is our episode for the week of August 10th, 2025. And ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 399. So come back next week for our 400th episode. I am your host, DBQ Hams, back from vacation. Thank you, gentlemen, for the show last week. Joining me tonight, it is the full crew. Tao Master 99, how are you, Tao?
I'm doing well. It's good for you. Nice to have you back.
Thanks. It's nice to be back. And Game Logic running the boards, making everything work. How are you, Game?
Good, guys.
All right. Well, let's get started. Tao, I have one question for you. Is Battlefield back?
It seems like it, as long as they nerf the shotgun, because it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, and it seems like the range on the shotgun is a little significant at this point, too.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed that after being shot multiple times, yes.
Yeah, from close or from far away, you're going to get one shot with the shotgun currently. So,
all right. So that is supposed to be a segue in for you to talk more about the Battlefield 6 open beta, but let's just formally introduce it. So as we do every week on the show, we talk about our main news stories, and then we head into the headlines and round out what else we've been playing. But as we already tipped our hat, Tao and I have both been playing a little bit of Battlefield 6. The open beta started off for some early access people on the 7th. And it continues until today, end of today. And I think there's a second wave of it as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so next week will be another 2 days.
I played on the Xbox Series X, and you've been playing on the PC?
Yes.
Or you've been playing on both? Okay.
No, just the PC. Yeah, I haven't tried on Xbox.
How's the PC experience been for you?
It looks amazing. It looks pretty good. There's the one graphical thing I will say is there's this weird, I shouldn't say weird, I guess it's supposed to kind of be like that, but maybe it's turned up a little bit too high, but it's like the brightness sometimes, like when, you know, how when you in a building, you come out of the building, it's like kind of that flash of, you know, brightness, but that kind of seems to be a bit much though in this game. And sometimes it kind of just sticks around if you're ever looking at certain spots. So yeah. Other than that, though, yeah, it's a beautiful looking game. I'll say that for sure. I think there's three maps, I believe, currently.
I think so.
At least
I've
two.
only seen 2. So yeah.
Okay.
But
yeah, I know there's like 2 like really small maps, and then the other one's kind of still smallish, but kind of medium, kind of that mountain range that you're fighting on.
Which modes did you play?
So far, I've only played Conquest. So
okay.
I think there's at least two other modes.
Yeah, there's a King of the Hill. There's a basically a death match. There's Domination, right? Which is the kind of control point, and then Conquest, right? Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So
have you tried the others?
I played Domination just to capture, the standard control point. Domination, does it work like Rush mode used to, or is it a little different?
I haven't played that one yet. It's Conquest is the one I've played.
Okay. Yeah. And I think Domination does work kind of similar to Rush mode. And there's it does a nice job of giving you some, kind of tutorials or links you to some videos to kind of step you through some of the modes. But yeah, I've played mainly just Conquest or whatever the one of capture point, control points.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, those videos are actually kind of nice for newer players. I mean, obviously we've played it before, but I don't know if they'll have. Supposedly, I guess there's a battle royale mode that they're going to put in there. I guess that was kind of rumored or maybe leaked at some point. I think this past week or two, but we'll see if that comes out like when it drops or if it's like a later thing. But
they talked about that with 2042 though, and that never really materialized. So
yeah. But yeah,
how much did you play? Did you play a lot of 2042, or did you kind of bounce off? I bounced off it, so I don't even think I used up my 10-hour trial on EA Play.
Yeah, I played it for just a couple hours maybe, and I was just like, there's just like too much. It was too janky for me. But yeah, this one, I mean, I haven't really seen anything too janky. Like maybe some like the ragdolls are wow. Sometimes even when someone just gets shot, like they'll go like totally flying across the screen. But other than that, like I haven't really seen. You get vehicles stuck in like cliffs or on a wall of a building or something. I mean, that's not. As soon as that blows up, you can get free and stuff like that. But I haven't really seen anything else weird, other than the light thing too. But yeah, it's been pretty good experience so far.
No, on Xbox it was really stable. I didn't really notice a whole lot of graphical pieces as well. So I played a couple of matches. I played both as engineer and support. A lot of kind of playing the objective classic Battlefield aspects of. And the spawn on with your squad has been nice. That's nice to come back to some of those pieces. And yeah, really enjoying it. The gameplay feels good. The support class feels pretty good in terms of both the quick revive and the standard revive. Part of it, like any multiplayer game, is just kind of map awareness, right? Of figuring out where those blind spots are and getting a sense of that. And for me, in true Battlefield fashion, I am playing and dying a whole lot. But it definitely feels, I played a good amount of Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3, Hardline, and it definitely harkens back to kind of the pace and feel of Battlefield 4 for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to do like any vehicles other than kind of jumping into a tank every once in a while. I'm just like riding along. I didn't really get to use it. Same thing with like the other little kind of like Jeeps or Hummers or whatever they're supposed to be. Just jumping into like the gunner. But I didn't get to do any like the helicopters or planes or anything because there's only like one, I think, since these maps are so small.
Yeah, I was in a Jeep multiple times, both as a gunner and also driving, and controls there seem solid, nothing too janky. So yeah, I mean it felt really responsive. I think the different I actually kind of like the what they're going with the loadouts, where it's weapons are not locked to classes. As you unlock them through leveling, you can equip them on any class, so you're not kind of hamstrung by switching classes to fill a role on a squad. And so I think that's beneficial. Yeah, I think the movement feels good. The classic Battlefield slide and going prone, and I think all the it's you're moving pretty quickly, but it doesn't feel kind of sped up in terms of anything that doesn't feel too unnatural in terms of acceleration and movement.
Yeah, I think well, probably because of the smaller maps, but it seems like I'm dying a lot more in this Battlefield than others. But I think, like I said, it's just the maps these ones are so small, and they've said they're going to have medium to larger maps too when it fully releases. And I'm assuming probably next weekend they might release one of them, maybe medium or large maps, just so you can kind of get a feeling for those.
Sure. Yeah, I think in some ways, keeping it with a small map for a beta test kind of keeps people circling through the servers in terms of bringing people in, spawning back in. It kind of, I can see where, and it also feels like that. Like you're not in these smaller maps, and it's still a trek if you're kind of get to a far control point, but it never feels too far to kind of get around either. So you're not spending, I think that was one of the things that I struggled with 2042, is that because the maps are so big, you spent a whole lot of time trying to run and getting sniped. I mean, you always get sniped, but spend a lot of time just running and dying halfway to the actual control point. So
yeah,
I do like. I've seen some chatter online about the sniper trails in terms of being able to see where that sniper shot comes from. I can see the benefit of that in terms of gameplay. I can also see that it, from somebody who often gets sniped, it's nice to have a better sense of where somebody is. But again, it's the visuals, as you said, the visuals look really solid. There's been plenty of times when I've seen the reflection off a scope off in the distance and have been able to go prone or get out of the way. And it's even, I'm running on a 1080p, so I'm not even running in 4K, and it looks really nice.
Yeah, it's nice that you can still see like the glints from the scope, and there's also the kill cam too. They'll show you who killed you and kind of where they're at. So, which is also always nice. I'm like surprised people don't complain about that more than anything because I don't know. It's obviously it shows exactly where that person is where that killed you. So you know where to kind of go or kind of avoid if when you come back in.
But on the kill cam, it shows you kind of get the reflection of where they were when they killed you, and then you can see them still moving on. So
yeah, moves.
Yeah. But so Tao, is this something that's been on your kind of must play list for the fall, or does this open beta push you in one direction or the other?
Yeah, I wasn't. I mean, I was just kind of waiting to see. I completely forgot the beta was even coming until my one friend had messaged me about it. We're actually playing Battlefield 5. Actually, he told me about it. Before that, I was just like, okay, we'll see what happens because you never know with the Battlefields. But yeah, after playing the beta, it's definitely as long as everything's still good. And it seems like, I mean, since this is a beta, everything seems, like I said, pretty stable. I'll probably pick it up probably day one, more than likely, if not too long afterwards. So yeah, having a good time with it.
Game Logic, any questions, follow up? You haven't dabbled in it yet, I'm assuming.
No, I've been laying off the gas since Clear Obscure Expedition 33 kind of brought me back to story-driven stuff. So Tao, so you said you're playing it on PC. Are you playing it through Steam or the Xbox app?
Just through the EA app, actually, that I have on my machine. I pulled it down from that.
Okay, so when if you're thinking about buying it, are you planning on buying it through the EA app?
I don't know. I was probably going to do through Steam, more than likely. I mean, just because most of my stuff's on there anyway. So,
okay. So the setup for this year's version of a Battlefield, like factions and like any kind of background story. So this thing is supposed to have a single player campaign to it, isn't it? This year.
Yeah, that was their first release kind of announcement, was a single player campaign. It's set in, I mean, from what I remember from the single player kind of trailer, is that there is basically a rogue group that is trying to take down NATO. And so you end up in, I think New York is in one of the spots. It is that's the most I know about kind of the single campaign, but there is definitely, that's been kind of their first foot forward, was a single player campaign.
Yeah, in modern day-ish setting. So it's not near future or anything like that, or past.
So is anything like that, like any notion of that, like bleeding into like the multiplayer, like that you've seen as far as like classes that are being set up for each of the different factions, and like in particular, like gear that you get for each class?
Not really. I mean, it's the same gear basically for each side, as far as I can tell. Like, I don't see any difference, like depending on who I'm on, what side I'm on. But like DB said, I mean, you can use any gun, pretty much for any class, but the gadgets are obviously kind of locked. Obviously you can't. The support's a defibrillator and stuff like that, or is locked to support and stuff like that. But other than that, yeah, it's really not much of a difference, I don't think.
So the guns, like you're able to use the guns for any class, but like are certain classes like do you get like a proficiency hit or something when like you use like a heavy, like a light machine gun or something with a class that's like that's not supposed to be like their type of sidearm?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the kind of controversy within kind of the traditional Battlefield community, but also part of what they've come out messaging, intentionality behind it, of not necessarily providing a deficiency or a skill reduction percentage if you're swapping out things outside of your class. I think it comes back more to, as if you've leveled up those guns, you're going to end up with a better specs and skill and stats on them as well.
And is the gear like unlockable within the classes? So is there like progression like there is in Call of Duty?
Yeah, you unlock stuff as you level up the different, and kind of the weapons too. You can unlock the different attachments to everything. And then there's a point system too. I don't know if I don't remember them having that in the past Battlefields. I don't even know if you can do the attachments and stuff like that, and like old ones. I don't remember because it's been a while since I played any.
You could do attachments, at least in some of them. I don't remember the points piece in the same way that this seems to display. You get a couple. I don't remember exactly. You get an additional kind of result screen at the end of a match, at the end of a round as well, in terms of not only your own progression, but then your progression on weapons and things like that.
Yeah, there's a good amount of stats on that end screen now, other than just the scoreboard. So,
and my favorite thing in Battlefield, do fire teams matter? Do squads matter? Have they done anything to kind of like more so incentivize people to stick together as a squad when you spawn?
I mean, I would say the only thing as playing, I played as a solo player and squatting up with randoms, and the only real benefit that was communicated in terms of that was your ability to spawn on your squad, and that you can spawn on your squad, and basically as long as you're not in combat, you can spawn on your squad. But other than haven't seen that there's any types of buffs or perks if you're within a vicinity or a range of your squad.
Yeah, the only thing, like I was playing with a few times actually with a full squad of 4 with a bunch of people I knew, and one of them dropped, like I don't know, just connection dropped or whatever, but he was still able to come back in, but he couldn't get back on our squad. So when he went down, like you can see like everybody who needs, like I was playing support, you can see everybody who's downed, but I couldn't tell like who he exactly was, because like there's multiple little icons saying that someone's down, but I didn't know exactly who he was. So I couldn't really, like, I would just go try to save everybody because I didn't know who he was. So that's kind of a benefit, I guess. But other than that, yeah, there's really no, other than the spawns too, I didn't see anything. And maybe that's something they're waiting for, full release, if there is anything like that, but we'll see.
So big came out of this beta. Like lots of discussion about this thing being a COD killer this year. Like what jumped out at you guys as like the top 1 or 2 things which would give any credence or credibility to those claims, or causality that you think that there was behind the big numbers, other than the fact that Call of Duty has gotten just completely goofy, and I think people have maybe flooded to it like in hopes of getting back to something more grounded. But like traits and gameplay mechanics and things that you guys saw out of the Battlefield itself.
I think in some ways the reason you saw such huge numbers this weekend was it's been a pretty long time since there was a traditional modern Battlefield. Like, I think that in and of itself, like there was a hunger for that. And I think you're absolutely right of people feeling maybe a little burned out on Call of Duty, or at least that this offers something a little different, both in terms of pace and in terms of kind of, I don't know, groundedness, that, as you said, you're not necessarily seeing in Call of Duty at this point. And I think it also, looking ahead at the fall and comparing it with Call of Duty, with Black Ops 7 being a little near future, this does give you a modern setting versus a futuristic setting. Tao, any thoughts of? I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call it a Call of Duty killer because it's still Battlefield, and who knows what it's going to launch like and how stable things are going to be. But anything that really stood out to you?
No, yeah, I think you hit like pretty much all the points that it's a modern setting. It's, for me, it's it's pretty much stable. Like there's no, like I haven't seen any, like I said, I haven't seen any weird bugs or problems or anything like that. So if it's going to be a COD killer, I mean, maybe, but I mean, there was always those kind of two camps, and maybe it's been a while too since both of these games have come out, at the same time, same year. But I don't know. I guess with 2042, obviously that was kind of already having, you could already see the problems, like even just in the betas, when they did have betas for that, and people are like, what, this is not going to work. Even though like most people are like, okay, it is a beta, but we'll see, when it releases. But obviously it was still kind of a mess at launch, and I'm assuming it got better. I don't, like I said, I haven't really played it since then.
Yeah, it definitely got more stable. Looking at the community, it's been, but it took 2 years to get there, and it never really found. To me, it never seemed to really find a footing in terms of a mass audience with 2042, and I think even numbers wise, probably Battlefield 1 was the last time that Battlefield did significant numbers. So, yeah, I'll be very curious because it's a whole generation. Battlefield 4 was 2013. So, I mean, this is kind of a modern Battlefield for some people that this has not been, Battlefield's never been in that same breath as Call of Duty in their gaming lifetimes. Nate, thanks for joining us. I'm going to read your comment here for those listening. Battlefield could never kill it for me since the gameplay is just fundamentally different. Hope it is everything Battlefield fans want. Call of Duty killing itself for me with bad servers. Yeah, it is. It always is going to feel a little bit different. It's not going to be nearly as pick up and play as Call of Duty traditionally has been. To me, that's the reason I've always enjoyed Battlefield more than Call of Duty, just in terms of the different classes and roles, but it also makes it more of an investment, and sinking time into a large player map is, if you're dying a whole lot like I am, it is sometimes a slog of patience in terms of trying to be productive and continuing to respawn. So I can, it'll be interesting to see what numbers look like, what concurrent numbers look like, what kind of traction this gets. And the other piece of this that you don't see in the beta is how many layers of battle passes and other things are they going to slap on it, and what that does, both in terms of kind of grinding and gating, but also in terms of kind of obfuscating the approachability that the beta clearly has at this point.
Yeah,
are you guys able to hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yes.
So it sounds like I caught what Tao said. I missed what DBQ said because I lost audio for a couple minutes. So, but what it sounds like is, and just tell me if I'm completely wrong, it sounds like there is no tangible objective reason why the numbers are high and why people are claiming that this is potentially a COD killer, other than maybe COD fatigue for this year.
I think, and also a little hunger for, kind of, I'll compare this to college football last year with EA as well, right? Like there's a pent up marketplace demand for something like this because there hasn't been a successful modern large scale Battlefield in a long time, at least from EA, from DICE. Like there have been other indie studios and smaller devs that have done things similar, but if they can nail it, I think it'll be interesting, because I would like to think that there's still a market for this, but also 12 years ago, the marketplace was a whole different beast than it is right now. So, it has the potential, I guess, is the best I can say, not to be a Call of Duty killer, but I don't think it needs to be a Call of Duty killer. What it needs to be is not a Battlefield killer to just totally destroy the brand and the IP, which after two kind of struggling releases with Battlefield 5 and 2042, just Battlefield itself needs a little bit of a win to remain a viable franchise.
And so now I'm going to get on my consolidation soapbox, right? Because there have been things out there, right? There's Insurgency Sandstorm, there's Ready or Not, there's there are other good modern, like, realistic grounded military shooters, but they can't get any visibility, right? And now you have these two teams, which you have Call of Duty at Xbox at Microsoft, and now you have this Battlefield team, and the Battlefield team is scaled up. So now you have two teams that are like 3,000 people, right? Like literally billions of dollars will be invested in these two franchises that literally smother and choke everything else. You have Splitgate, right, coming off the scene now. You have the finals, which has gained a user base, but it seems like they're not gonna, like, they blew up, they contracted, they expanded a little bit back, and now they're back to contraction. They're probably going to sit and settle like at that base. So we're just in this environment where the orbits are consolidating around, the platform owners and like the really big publishers, and for things like this, particularly in the live service space, right? There's just less livelihood. I know Jeff Grubb and I got into like an argument like a couple years ago about like him saying, well, the next big, when we were arguing about the acquisition, and he was like, the next big thing is going to come out of the indie scene like PUBG. And I think what we've seen now in PUBG 2 years after the fact is that PUBG had its moment in the sun, but we're probably never going to see another PUBG again, right? So I mean, I don't know. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, another one too was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say that the other one too is Delta Force. That was supposed to be a big, come up for Battlefield likes, and that kind of, I haven't really heard anything about that. I know there's some issues at the beginning of that one, but it was interesting going back to a comment you said, DB, about if there's going to be any kind of battle passes or anything like that going forward. Traditionally, like even going back to Battlefield 3, like they would just release DLC basically. So about like going back to Battlefield 3 is like 5 for that, and then they kind of went up with that DLC, and for 4 it was like 9, and then Hardline was 5, and then they kind of go back and forth with the numbers. But and I'm just wondering, like, if they're even going to try that, because obviously they've tried to do not necessarily Battle Pass, I guess, but they try to do the loot crates with what do you call it? The Battlefront series, and obviously that turned into a disaster. So I wonder if they're just going to kind of stick to the gun and say, hey, we're not going to do any kind of battle passes or anything like that, or we're just going to do DLC like we've done in the past, and it seems to have worked for them. So we'll have to see.
Okay, well,
there will absolutely be a battle pass.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other piece is like you're absolutely right, but that was at a time when you sold DLC packs, right? Like that was at a time.
Even 2042, they're still doing that. Just
were they
DLCs.
Selling map packs?
No, I'm just DLCs. So they're still doing DLCs for 2042. Well, going back, just looking at I'm looking at Wikipedia, so maybe it's not in DLC, but it looks like it compared to all the other ones.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Game Logic?
No, I mean, it's EA, right? And we've seen what's going on with Apex Legends. We see where the market is now. We've reported on this since this transition started, right? And we're one of the people who started talking about the dynamics that we're seeing in the market, right? The rise of digital, the rise of microtransactions, the rise of battle passes. We lived through Destiny 2. We lived through the market chasing that formula, and so. Yeah, I'm not saying this but I mean, I think I realize the motivation for the optimism now. But I mean, this is now with Activision, kind of like I said at home, with Microsoft. I mean, Activision and EA have been the two big monsters, right? Kind of, foisting this thing onto the landscape, and I think it's almost unquestionable. Like it's going to be heavily I think EA was the first. Was EA the first one I think EA was the one who's credited with the quote of we want to get to the point where when you buy a game from us, you buy it 5 times, or whatever it is. So what exactly that's going to look like, I don't know, but I feel pretty strongly given that I expect them to lean heavily on the Apex Legends model, right? In some way. And I mean, and I don't want to make overly light of that. So what I'm saying is EA is a money grubbing organization. I'm almost unquestionably they're looking to monetize this thing some way. They have to be to have assembled as large a team as they have. But I will say, from the aspect of people who like gas games and want that consistent progression, I live in this game, I play this game, I'm on the grind, I get a thing out of this game. For those types of people, I think however they structure it, it's going to be rewarding, right? If you have these 3 different factions and multiple classes, whatever they construct is gonna roll the red carpet out, right, for people who want to live in that life.
Yeah, I'm going to take that as a segue to talk about another EA game. But I mean, I think you're absolutely right, Game Logic. This is, I mean, we sat here on this podcast in 2017 looking at financials and year-end reports from EA, and their microtransaction revenue was greater than their individual title sales. Like, it's been 8 to 9 years at this point of microtransactions being their largest revenue driver. This is why we see, they tried it in multiple different ways with loot boxes and battle passes. This is ultimate team aspects within the sports titles. Like, they know that there's revenue that can be pulled from people. It will be a question of how they structure this in such a way that doesn't negatively impact the player base, or if they can structure it in such a way that doesn't negatively impact the player base. So let's move from one EA title to another. So talking about Ultimate Team and the sports titles, Madden 26 released, or at least the early access of it, came out on August 7th, same day as the Battlefield open beta. If you were an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate member, which gives you EA Play, so you get a 10-hour trial, or if you are an EA Play Pro member on PC, you get the game early because you have the license for the digital, or if you've purchased the digital deluxe edition, you'd be playing it. It releases next week in kind of the standard mode. So it's been out there. I've been playing it a couple hours in on Xbox. As someone who's still playing Madden 25 in an online league, I can see some differences in the franchise piece. They've scaled down some of the storylines that were broken last year. There are they tried to create a number of storylines last year, and the logic in them was broken. This past season in 25, I had a running back who needed to score 16 touchdowns in order to get a big XP boost. I had him score 23, and I did not get the XP boost because I did not score 16. So the logic behind it was that was one of the things that the developers talked about in terms of some of their previews around franchise. They've done some other things with franchise to streamline things in the training and the week-to-week pieces. You've got a halftime show that catches things around the league during the in between weeks. As after you advance a week, you can look at the week in review and see clips from some of the different games. Whether they're games played by other players or games played by the computer, you get kind of a Sports Center like highlight reel of that. One of the big changes in not necessarily in gameplay. In gameplay, it feels pretty similar, and gameplay with Madden in the first week has always been a wait and see. You know that there's going to be a number of patches to tweak things in terms of how your defense responds to the ball, or in many cases doesn't respond to the ball. But one of the things that they've added and kind of taken it, and Game Logic, you'll know this from college football, is the wear and tear system in terms of a little more. And they've kind of emphasize that here, where you have your body parts that will have wear and tear. Depending on how you're practicing, it will impact your wear and tear, the stamina and injury stats of your player. One of the things that it ends up doing, at least it did in the franchise, taking the Browns and you end up 2 rookie running backs. I had to play a lot of running back by committee because my starter would get, kind of banged up, and would, even during practices when he was not playing with full pads or half pads, his injury stats were, his wear and tear certainly is impacted. And so you have a lot more incentive to do substitutions before somebody gets injured. And so that piece is there. There's superstar mode, kind of the single player story aspect. I played that during the beta as well. It's pretty much the same as last year. Not a whole lot of difference there. Looking online, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot new there either. So I played around a little bit with Ultimate Team. Ultimate Team is Ultimate Team. It's a lot of challenges and menu loading. Menu loads are definitely a little better than they were the last couple years. So on the field, again, it plays really solid. It's enjoyable. It's not, I don't know that it's a huge step from Madden 26. It does feel like they've cleaned up some things in franchise mode for people that enjoy franchise mode. It's been interesting. So I have been playing it on the Xbox, but I've been so tempted to pick it up on Switch just to be able to play it a handheld. And it's looking online and watching videos around it. It really seems to be not necessarily all over the place in terms of the Switch performance. Switch performance it sounds like it's running at 30 frames per second. Some places have clocked it at 40. Definitely sounds like it drops down lower than 30 during the cutscenes or like the intros in terms of, kind of those cinematic aspects. Also, some players have been having problems with it on the Switch if they've been running it off the SD card rather than installed on the internal memory. But I think, the thing I've taken away from people's impressions around the Switch version is it plays pretty good if you're not comparing it to the speed and the pace of a console or PC. That if you're coming to Madden, if this is the first time you're picking up Madden in a while, that it is certainly a serviceable and looks pretty good on the small screen. Seems like dock mode has some issues still. So we'll see on terms of patching. I think, as somebody who has played Madden on Xbox since he bought the Madden 15 version of Xbox One, has been playing for a decade. So I think I'm enjoying it. Madden gets me almost every year where it's like, do I drop the money on it? Do I wait for a sale? I mean, there have been years on this podcast in this week of kind of the early access where I've talked about terrible glitches and losing color off a screen or people clipping through the field. It feels, I'm not noticing those things. Like it's pretty stable. The online code seems solid. There's still you're always going to be playing with sliders in terms of trying to tweak the game settings a little bit, but definitely feels like a solid Madden. Whether or not the roster update and some of the franchise improvements are worthwhile to you is going to be a matter of perspective. All right. Yeah. Go.
I was to say, so any, I know you said it kind of through some of the modes, like there's a difference, but anything with gameplay or graphically, like any animations that maybe look different? Because I thought they were supposed to do something with animations this year or something. I don't know if improve them or do something, but I don't know if you've seen anything since you kind of playing both versions.
I think the animations feel a little. I mean, they feel good. I can't tell if there's anything. I think this is not the difference between College Football 25 and College Football 26, where you were locked in animations a lot more in 26. I feel like the ability to break on the ball is better in 26. The running game has been solid in both years, but it does on the field. It does feel pretty good.
So DBQ, so you play this on Xbox primarily, and I apologize. We have to do this almost every year. I blame it on EA because of the totally confusing flipping thing that there is about EA Play. So are you on the EA Play paid thing that you can only get at the ultimate Habuchu level on PC?
No, I was for like Madden 20, I believe, where I did that. But no, it is if you're on Game Pass Ultimate on Xbox, then you do get the EA Play, which includes the trial.
Okay. And so that does not entitle you to like the full game at launch.
No, it's a 10-hour trial.
Yep. Okay. And so just to backtrack, so are you, when you say EA Madden gets me every year, are you planning on buying it this year?
This is where I don't know, right? Like I'm going to see Like I probably will hold off and wait for a sale like I did last year. Last year I picked up Madden on the PlayStation 5 around Thanksgiving time, when it was like $30. In part, like if my online league moves over to 26 quickly, I probably will. But if we stick around on 25 because it's on Game Pass, the incentive for me leading up to this, the incentive for me was, do I pick this up on Switch because then I can play Madden sitting on a couch watching TV with the family versus downstairs on a dedicated console on a TV while no one else is around? And that was the real question of if I'd pick it up. And also I was kind of, hoping to pick it up to support Madden on a Nintendo platform because it's been since Madden 13 on the Wii U. It's been also since Madden 13 on the Vita that you've been able to play Madden on the go. And so there's a part of me that likes that idea. Whether or not how big of a change 30 frames will be and the ability to remap controls so I'm not passing goofily because I'm used to the Xbox controller.
So normally you do not, because this thing goes into Game Pass like in the February or Super Bowl timeframe, right?
Yeah, like right after or right before the Super Bowl, it goes into Game Pass. So last year I didn't pick up 25 on Xbox. I nursed along my 10 hours to log in and grab some packs every month, and my Madden VP status continued. Man, that's a whole nother thing too. Like you would get personal phone calls from people about your Ultimate Team. Like that tells you how much money EA must make on Ultimate Teams, is that, I qualified for VP status and once a month I'd have somebody call me to check in. Like, have you checked out the recent promo? Like they've stopped with the personalized phone calls, but you still do get some perks and things like that. But yeah, it really does speak to how much money they must bring in terms of this. So no, I did not. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm sorry. So you're saying, so normally you don't wait until then, but every few years you might wait until it just shows up in Game Pass?
Yes. Yeah, I think if I'm going to go back through like the last 4 years of Madden, like Madden 23, I pre-ordered it because that was John Madden on the cover, right? I wanted that, and 24 I never purchased until it went free because my league never moved over. 25 I picked up on PlayStation 5 while playing on Xbox and kind of nursing along the game, the preview. So yeah, so it ends up like I will, at some point in time, I will tell this podcast that I have broken down and purchased Madden again. The question is, how long do I wait?
Okay. And are you guys still hearing me okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And just going back, I mean, I think...
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, I think one of the things that last year was different in terms of American football was that there was a college football game, right? Like, if you've picked up college football and you're invested in a franchise, I think it would be hard to juggle both games. Like, that's a lot of investment. And so, last year I'd never got into Madden that much because I was heavily invested in college football. Like, if you're enjoying college football game logic, you're getting your gridiron fix one way or the other.
And so that answers my question on why you don't buy like the combo pack or whatever when it comes out with college football.
Yeah, that's exactly why. Like, even when the discount is nice and it works out to being like $60 per the deluxe version of each game. Like, it's a great value, but I'm never going to invest that much time to make it worthwhile.
So Tao, go ahead. I do want to, after Tao, you get done, I do want to swing back to the microtransaction conversation we were having about EA, because I pulled up some additional information, but go ahead, Tao.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so is there a cross progression then between the versions, or no? They're all separate?
Tao, thank you. This is a perfect segue to Game Logic's point, I'm sure, because no, there is not cross progression. That would mean that you would only have to purchase things once. Why would they give you cross progression if they could sell you packs on both or multiple consoles? So no, there is not cross progression. There is cross play between PC and consoles, not on Switch because of the difference in frame count. But no, there is your Ultimate Team does not carry over with you. It's not like you're playing Madden Mobile and on iOS and Android and you can swing back and forth. This is very much your purchases are locked to that platform. So Game Logic, there's your segue about the value of microtransactions purchases with EA Sports titles. Except unless his finger's up, that means his mic didn't drop again. So
yeah, no, I'm good. I can hear you. I was just checking an audio coming out on the live stream. So going back to the discussion of microtransactions is just kind of where EA is to talk about like what your expectations should be, how they're going to behave with Battlefield. So looking at their annual guidance for FY 2026, and I talked about EA earnings on my solo cast, the Logic Files, a couple weeks ago. EA projects GAAP net revenue of 7.1 billion to 7.5 billion, which is a somewhere between a negative 0.4 to negative 5% drop year over year. So net bookings, which is what EA really kind of jumps up and down and stomps about in their earnings calls, is expected to be 7.6 billion to 8 billion, which is up from 7.36 billion in FY 2025. And so that is somewhere between a 3.3 and an 8.7% year over year increase. When we talk about net bookings, so the difference between net bookings and net revenue and why as a corporation you might want to report them, why you might want to focus on net bookings rather than net revenue. So net revenue, I mean, kind of both of these are, but GAAP rules, a big part of GAAP rules is revenue recognition. Like just so we're clear, like when you sell a thing doesn't mean that you're necessarily able to record all dollars of that thing that you sold on your accounting ledger, right? Depending on what rules you file under for SEC, right? And informing them how your intent to report financial information to investors. So for net revenue, let's take, for instance, especially a $30 battle pass, right? So if you're like this Black Cell battle pass for COD, if season 3, right, started a week before your financial reporting period ended, you would be allowed to, your revenue recognition rules probably would allow you to take 25% of the credit, right, for that. Because the remainder of that, or maybe less percentage, right, the remainder of that goes off into the rest of the quarter, right? But if you're EA and you report net bookings allows you to recognize all of that revenue, regardless of whether or not it slides out the quarter. And so in particular, you think about EA and the way they rack up pre-orders, right? They're able to recognize all of that revenue before you actually receive the disc or receive the title, right at the point where you do the pre-order. So EA is one of those companies that reports very heavily around that, because I think 2K does as well, is one of the ones that stands out in my head. So the point is that their forward projecting guidance going into right the end of the fiscal year is that they're going to be under revenue pressure and they expect revenue to drop, but they expect net bookings to go up, which means they expect demand to be increasing, even though they're going to be challenged for revenue. Probably one of those reasons is they expect to see high demand because they're putting games on Nintendo Switch, which is also probably why they're putting games on Nintendo Switch, because it makes net bookings look really good, right? Because they're now going to have an additional platform of people that are buying stuff and buying battle passes and subscriptions and DLC and things that they can recognize fully, right? I would also suspect, right, part of that is because they're going to do the same thing with Battlefield 6. And another key part of this is, like I said, this team has ramped up over the last year, going into, like, there's been a steady, like, news trend, kind of rolling thunder thing of like how big this team is getting. And because remember, they had studios that were stood up to do the single player campaign, and I think some elements of the multiplayer that they wound up like closing. and then they put more of the work on other studios and ramp them up. So their operating expenses have also taken a hit, resulting in a lower expected EPS payout as those operating expenses increase and eat into their margin, which is part of why their net revenue, or their part of why at the end of the day their total profit is going to look not as great. So again, they're under kind of duress to I don't want to say invest more heavily, but more so push in the direction of subscriptions and microtransactions and things that allow them to, prop up cash flow and allow them to claim, more total dollars right under the net bookings framework of GAAP.
Okay. This is why I love this podcast, because Game Logic is dropping GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, as just out there and rolling into some good financial analysis. So, how often are you going to be listening to a gaming podcast and you get some accounting vocabulary thrown at you as well? So thank you, Game Logic, for bringing that analysis, because you're absolutely right. Like, this is very much a part of, and you're right, I think it is 2Ks because of NBA 2K and WWE in terms of, and GTA Online, right? Like, the number of ways that those pre-orders happen, the ways that the additional booking and transactions, I think that all is central around the success of these franchises. That said, I think it goes to me, what that also does is it brings me back to your point of the struggle of large studios, the spool up of production costs and studio size to make this a sustainable model versus small independents, right? Like, the challenge with sports titles is the smaller independents never quite get the same way with first person shooters, don't get the same type of headlines and press, while the games may also be just as engaging. As much as I really have struggles with the current kind of game market in terms of how sustainable AAA gaming is, in terms of how do we not have a consolidated few players that can sustain the ups and downs given the high investments of AAA games, and how do we facilitate the health of a larger industry when it doesn't necessarily get the same coverage, but also revenue or even sustainability in terms of smaller studios and smaller games that are cheaper to produce, but also get flooded and buried in the marketplace. Game Logic, mute, maybe?
Sorry. Yep. So my last comment before I jump off my consolidation soapbox is, you go back 2 years ago, 10 companies made 67%, 2/3 of the revenue in the console and PC gaming space. And now, after the acquisition, you have Sony and Microsoft between Xbox and PlayStation, who make over 50% of that revenue, right, between the two of them. So, yeah, like I said, here we are. I mean, it just dovetails to your comment. Like, it's just going to get tougher and tougher out there.
Okay, well, let's take a break from some financial analysis and just move into gold collecting and coin collecting. As Game Logic, you picked up Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Yeah, and I've had it for a while. Yeah, so your segue really means, okay, Game Logic, you can end with the sermon and stop preaching.
No, actually, I mean, I think we could keep going on this for quite a bit, because combining Battlefield and Madden in the same week, and not only kind of the big nature of these studios, but also the way that revenue is generated and the challenges financially that EA has had. EA is not the player that they were a decade ago, the last time Battlefield came out, in terms of their share of the marketplace. There's a ton that we could be talking about here. But the fact that we're an hour in, I feel like, we'll probably come back to this at some other point, either through the news at another week or by another game release, because we'll get more opportunities to talk about the challenges of microtransactions and game studio sizes.
Yeah, and this will really be the last thing that I say, but you just bring up an interesting point. Like, and you can think of it both in terms of like how challenging this dynamic in the market makes it for anybody outside of Xbox and PlayStation, but also outside of like the big primary publishers, or you can look at it as masterfully executed EA. But understand that for 2 weeks in a row, what you're going to wind up getting is a very large amount of the air sucked out of the room by Electronic Arts, because masterfully they ran this Battlefield 6 beta, and then last week and this weekend, and they're rolling right into Madden 26 this week. So it's like going to kind of be an all EA headline and banner. And we'll talk about the other games that are coming out next week, but they're kind of like we talked about with the Command and Conquer drop from EA, collection remaster out of the blue. People get smothered, when these big things are all going at the same time. I'll be relatively quick with regards to Donkey Kong Bananza. So I've had it. It's not a new pickup. I've had it. I think since about launch, and I've picked at it. I played in handheld mode this week. I've moved past my point where I felt like I liked Super Mario Odyssey more. So I'm finding more enjoyment in the game. I think my big turnoff to the game, or at least the aspect of the game design that I like least, is the destructive environment just feels very, very wanton and purposeless. And it's just a big, gold digging palooza, right? Which I get that some people will like that. And there's a zen in that you could just go onto these levels and just dig a tunnel to China and endlessly plunge for gold. And I'm sure some people will find that enjoyable. I find it makes it harder for me to pick out on the landscape and the environment, like what the objective of the level is. And then there's tons of secrets, right? And, left and right. And it's interesting because I was kind of playing this at the same time that I was also playing Doom the Dark Ages. And Doom the Dark Ages also has like secret areas and stuff that you can get into. But I feel like that's a little more patently obvious on which ones you can freely bypass. Whereas like when you hit a secret area or an area that like I'm not clear, because I'm just not as versed right in the language of platformers and Donkey Kong and Super Mario to pick out like, oh, I don't really need to bother with that. But I also do it because I'm like, I don't know when the next time is that I'm going to find like a really meaty thing, right, set piece for me to dig into, because I don't really know how far I am right before the end of the level. So, but at any rate, like I said, I've had a good time with it. I'm, the boss battles are, I will compliment it. Like, you guys know that I'm not a huge fan of boss battles. I've become slightly more converted to like being willing to stomach them through Claire Obscure. But generally I would probably assume that my first like approach or take on them in a game would not be great, but these are comfortable. They're challenging but doable. They're kind of little mini puzzles in and of themselves for you to kind of figure out. But yeah, overall I'm having a good time with it, and it plays really good in handheld mode. I've taken it up to my upstairs office multiple days to tell myself that I'm going to take 30 minutes to play, and that never happens. So, but eventually I'll do it. But at a minimum, the game has encouraged me, right, to do that, to take my Nintendo Switch and pack it up like in my little carrying case and take it upstairs with me, to try and get that 30 minutes of time in. So hopefully I'll eventually hit that.
Nice. Well, I will come back and circle back around to Donkey Kong another week with you as well, because it is a game that I still continue to chip away at as someone who does enjoy the wanton destruction of it. But go ahead and stay on the mic, Game Logic, because we're going to move into our news stories for the week, and we'll clip through these and see what we're left with in terms of time. First one up, as we're talking about consolidation, let's talk about a former Coalition employee who then was a Blizzard employee who is now leaving Blizzard.
I'm not sure if I'm not sure if his comment was a comment or a question. He said EA primarily relying on its popular sports titles. I think what we've seen from EA just really quickly is that, you know, they are narrowing down at least some expenditure of effort on stuff on the fringe, right? This is why Codemasters is now off of doing Dirt. What that means for them going forward, we don't exactly know, but at least as of right now, they're not doing anything but the Formula One series. This is why we have seen somebody else like Need for Speed is kind of on pause until they figure out what they're going to do with that. So they're definitely like optimizing level of effort and focusing on the big ticket items for right now. This news story over on Eurogamer by Vicky Blake. Diablo boss Rod Ferguson leaves Blizzard. Rod Ferguson and it's unclear who will replace him to lead the franchise. Rod Ferguson is stepping away from his leadership role at Blizzard. In a brief statement on social media, Ferguson said the teams are set up for success with an exciting slate of releases ahead, adding he was looking forward to what comes next for Diablo and for me. Ferguson did not give a specific reason for leaving and declined to comment further when asked by the press. It's also unclear who will lead the Diablo team forward. So, you know, you can take what you will from this. Obviously, the story of Blizzard has been one that has been an oscillating wave of a wagon, you know, kind of rolling over the hills over the last few years. You had leadership installed, and then you had leadership removed as a result of kind of some of the Me Too movement scandals. You had Ibarra come into power with, I can't remember who his co-CEO was at the time, but she then left when she found out that she was, you know, being had historically been way underpaid and was only finally paid in line with her peers when she was appointed to the co-CEO position under threat that she was going to leave. And then so when they capitulated to her demands, she was kind of like, see, and went ahead and left, leaving Ibarra in charge. And then you have Ibarra leave. Johanna Fairs moved over from being GM of the Call of Duty franchise to become CEO of Blizzard. So, you know, a tumultuous kind of roller coaster of changing leadership there at the executive level. And now you have this happening at the creative level. It's kind of weird that they're not naming his successor right away, which seems to mean it can mean a few different things. You know, not any that I can think of positively.
Right. Usually this is
you typically have. I'm sorry, go ahead, DDC. I can't hear you, but go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, yes, this is usually like, does it mean that there's a restructuring that's happening or an elimination, a collapsing of roles? Lots of potential ways that not announcing a transition and replacement can potentially go. Game Logic, did you drop again?
We're not hearing you now.
Nope. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah. Whenever I unplug and plug back in, the software mute hits, which I'm not used to checking for because I always use the hardware mute. But yeah, it comes off as weird that there's not a succession plan in place, which may make you, and I apologize if you said this, may make you feel that this was not planned, because you would think if it was planned, his successor would have been named. But it's, you know, the other possibility is that it's being competed and it wasn't competed well enough in advance. I mean, he could also have like personal or health or something that caused a timeline to be accelerated. So, you know, we don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes out.
Yeah, and we'll see, and also see where he goes next, right? Because he's been Gears of War. He came in with BioShock, with Irrational at one point in time, with getting Infinite out the door, coming in to finish off. He's been, you know, I think he's been successful as a closer, as somebody who ships games, and that can bring both positive and negative connotations depending on what it takes to get that to a completion state. All right, so our next story, we're going to turn to something a little bit lighter, but also stay on the Activision Blizzard wavelength. Here is, we had an announcement this week. This one's coming from Game Developer. It came out multiple other places as well. That Red Octane Games is relaunching. So it is not the original studio people. The original studio people for Red Octane Games will stay on, or not stay on, but are being brought on as a special advisory board. But this relaunch is spearheaded by Simon Ibar, who was previously a director at Neversoft, oversaw games like Guitar Hero 3, was working at Vicarious Visions, and also vice president of operations at Diablo, going back to the previous story as well. So it sounds like it's going to be a team of about 23 people working on a rhythm game space. And so it's a subsidiary of one of the Embracer groups, as the Embracer kind of split off into 3 different kind of subgroups. Maybe 2 years ago or so, that this is a subsidiary of one of those groups. So I just thought, as somebody who still has plastic guitars sitting behind me here, that picked up the most recent plastic guitar for Fortnite Festival that plays with Rock Band 4. I am glad to see somebody doing something in the rhythm game space. Whether or not this will, in some ways, Red Octane had good, plastic instruments with them, but also, I think whether this is the direction they go, or my guess is, in terms of accessibility, that it will be something that does not require additional kind of side peripheral purchases, but certainly has the potential to do things in the rhythm game space, which has been, going back to the indie conversation, like most of where you've seen rhythm games over the past decade has mainly been in the independent space as well. So it'll be interesting to see if and what Red Octane can ship. All right, I'm going to keep going with another new story here. This one is just a quick one because I don't know that we need to say a whole lot, but we often talk about Digital Foundry here, as many other podcasts and game sites talk about Digital Foundry's analysis around games. As I was talking about the frame rates around the Switch 2 version of Madden, that Digital Foundry has broken off or purchased their independence from IGN. So there's a whole messy kind of acquisitions trail to all of this, right? That it was Digital Foundry was part of Eurogamer and GameIndustry.biz, and GameIndustry.biz and Eurogamer were purchased by Ziff Davis, and so there's been this kind of trail of acquisitions. The Gamer Network was purchased by ReedPop, which organizes a lot of conventions and things like that, and sold off some of the gaming sites to Ziff Davis. So the fact that we've got, in the time when we often hear of both not only consolidation in the developer space, but consolidation in the games media space, and many laid off people in that industry branching off and going independent, or earlier this year talking about fandoms the ability that Giant Bomb purchased their independence from fandom, that now we've got Digital Foundry having their independence as well, which I think only bodes well for the quality of what they can do and their continued availability as industry analysis.
Yeah, just a couple go backs, DBQ, on the Red Octane story. My one comment on that was, I kind of raise my eyebrows and I kind of say, okay, kind of like I did when Konami got the band back together. I was like, yay, verily, like give it the old college try, like from a creative perspective, but from the business perspective, I'm like, like right now, like with the industry like it is and the market like it is, okay. And then with Digital Foundry, because a couple weeks ago, like I said on the Logic Files, I talked about the layoffs at IGN that had recently occurred, and a lot of the questions that the employee base has on, hey, while you guys are doing this, not only did you just acquire a bunch of people, but you're still out shopping for more places to acquire. So, is the plan to slow the pace on this so you guys cannot lay off more people? And in the IGN space, they had put together the IGN, I forget what they're called, the IGN like Creators Union, something like that.
But they just had layoffs as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yes, that was right. I forgot about that news story that IGN did have some layoffs this week.
Yeah, and Christopher Drain talked about at the beginning of the year on the Game Business Show about how there's been, like you said, there's been a consolidation of gaming media. There's been a severe contraction of gaming media. There's been a reduction in the total number of articles being written, which I think is fine. I think a lot of that is kind of like video games are. We're making 19,000 video games a year, and I'm kind of like, if you think of this like retail, then you're clearly putting more products on the shelf than there's actually demand for, right, in the buyer market. So, I don't know that part of the seeking of equilibrium is necessarily bad. But obviously the negative impact, right, to people's lives is obviously, an undesired side effect.
All right, Game Logic, go ahead and let's stay on the mic here. You've got the last two news stories, both centered around 2K, which brings us back to some of our previous discussions.
Yeah, so 2K earnings were reported this week, and I didn't pull all of like the earnings titles, I think, although I think this will get into some of it. This news story over on Polygon by Michael McWhorter. GTA 6 price should deliver more value than what we charge, Take-Two boss says. Grand Theft Auto 6's publisher Dodge are providing hard numbers when asked about the pricing of Rockstar Games' highly anticipated open-world crime epic, but said that Take-Two Interactive's goal with game costs is to deliver more value than what we charge, according to a new interview with Variety. Pricing for GTA 6 will come from Rockstar in due time, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick said Thursday, ahead of covering the company's earnings. Take-Two boasted that in a better-than-expected response, Grand Theft Auto 5 has reached a new sales milestone, topping more than 250 million units. Overall, the Grand Theft Auto franchise has sold nearly 455 million units to date. And so there's a lot of speculation. I won't, like I said, my objective with this wasn't entirely to get into the earnings aspect of it, but a lot of, feelings and speculation out there about, hey, GTA 6 could easily charge $100. Then you go back, last year or a year before, that speculation started running where Strauss said, I think, we could absolutely charge more for video games, than we do. But then has also said, like in follow-on interviews, that, Take-Two's objective is to always provide, that he feels like, Take-Two charges a fair price for the entertainment that they sell, and that, their objective is always to provide more value than like the price that they're charging. Now, it should be well known to all listeners, I do have a heavy bias for Strauss Zelnick. I think he is one of the best CEOs in the gaming business and one of the most financially savvy, in particular business savvy. Their structure has always kind of interested me because Strauss is actually not an employee of Take-Two. He and his partner are like incorporated as like their own LLC. And then that LLC is contracted to execute the CEO duties of Take-Two. So where I fall on this line is my personal belief is that, there's the big the crown jewel for GTA 6 is GTA 6 Online. And for me, from my perspective, what I think is that the best thing for that business model is to get as many people right underneath the velvet rope as possible, as early as possible at launch. And so you could charge $100 for it, but there's absolutely no need to, right? So I don't think it'll be $100, but you never know. I think the weird thing that's complicating the mix is that you also have this thing that Matt Piscatella has talked about where he's like, hey, companies are going to, I won't go through the whole thing, but I've always said we're going to get to $80 faster than we got to 70. And now you see people kind of counting coup, right? Touching the hot stove with that stick, right? With their finger. And doing this two-step where it's like a back and forth. It's like, charge $80 here, not charge $80 there. And Take Two were the people who jumped to 70 right before anybody and led that charge. So, that creates an interesting fly in the mix. So maybe it will be 80 in an effort to set the new benchmark. But I don't think it'll be 100 because I don't think that they need to.
Yeah, and I was just going to say your comments there about not needing to. I saw that news story this week. So WCCF Tech had Alina analyst Rice Elliott had an article with him basically saying the exact same thing that you did, Game Logic, of their money is made in GTA Online and they don't need to price it at $100 because they want people in. So all right, so that one is a little more financial. The next one is a little bit of all over the place. So what's your last news story here?
Okay, this news story over on Rock Paper Shotgun by Mark Warren. Okay is not okay, good is bad, great is the new great, in BioShock 4 is coming out as Take-Two boss stops short of claiming that up is down. Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick has reaffirmed 2K Games' assertion that the reportedly troubled BioShock 4 currently in the works at Cloud Chamber will make it to release. The reassurance follows a report from Bloomberg earlier this week, which reported that the game had failed a recent internal progress check, with the story specifically being tapped as an aspect that needs reworking, and some of the devs working on it have been reassigned to non-BioShock roles. I'm a huge fan of the BioShock series. I have always felt it was a dubious venture without Ken Levine at the helm or heavily involved. There are other games, right, that are hitting the landscape now that are BioShock-esque. So you have is it Atomic Fall that I think I talked about last week, that is very BioShock-esque. You have Clockwork Revolution, which is very BioShock-esque, and you have Ken Levine's own new game, which name escapes me right now, that we hopefully think is soon to arrive. That is also obviously BioShock-esque. You have System Shock 2 Remake, which just dropped. So that landscape could be feeling sort of crowded. I mean, my own feeling for this is I think when I think about Strauss's, the breadcrumbs that he's leaving, Take-Two is just one of those companies that is kind of like years ago we would apply this label to CD Projekt Red and some other places that, and we used to talk about this with Blizzard, right? That it'll come out when it comes out. We make enough money. There's no need to rush it. And that's where I kind of feel here. If, I would love to play this game, but if Cloud Chamber does not look like they're sticking the landing, then, take the model offline, retrain it, retune it, and put the model back in place if that's what you need to do.
Judas is the name of Ken Levine's upcoming game. All right, let's round the corner here into our final segment. I played a little bit of the Drag X Drive test, a server test. This is the wheelchair basketball game for Nintendo Switch 2. I'm going to save that for closer to when this game comes out, just for the sake of time.
And Nintendo does not want you to call it wheelchair. Just so you know, like that's the actual PR guidance they've been putting out to press is do not call it a wheelchair game.
Okay. I mean, as somebody who has played wheelchair basketball, it works. It is very similar to being in a wheelchair. So yes, I have some thoughts on this, but I'll save them to closer to the game releases because I'm curious if anything gets tweaked before it releases. Game Logic, you got 2 games here. Tao, you've got 1. So let's clip through these. Go ahead. I was talking about Madden earlier, and Game Logic, you have still been playing college football. Is it 25 or 26? Because you picked up this year's version, or did you playing last year's version? You haven't picked up unmuting your mic though. So
yes, I have college football on the PlayStation 5 Pro, but this listing in the agenda is actually for Football Club 25.
Sorry, yes, smushing it all together. Yeah.
So I pulled this down off the shelf, which I think I have on PC also, but I pulled this down off the shelf on Xbox through Game Pass / EA Play. And in particular, I've done this whole, talking about, Take Two. I've done this whole like 2-step foxtrot, step in, step out kind of dance with sports games in general, but also with Football Club, where I'm like, okay, I'm really digging into the whole like scouting and finding players and training my academy, and then flash forward to this year, and I'm like, I can't be bothered. Like, let AI do all that stuff. I just want to play the game. Let the virtual assistant coach or whatever handle all that. With Football Club in this startup, I've tried to find like this middle ground where I start the season, I'm playing the game, I'm just playing it on the pitch. But then like each week, like I try and dig like a little more right into like the coaching aspects and the managerial aspects. And so, I've started, making custom formations and custom plays, and changing like some of my tactical strategies on the field, moving some of my players around and changing their development plan. And I have to do this all the time because I'm not a real soccer fan. So I constantly have to like, well, what is this abbreviation? What is this position? Like, what is, what is a release clause, right? And all these things, particularly like when you go to negotiate like deals for players, I'm like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. But I've really had a good time with it this past week because I really like took the time, right, to soak into some of that stuff. So I've started cranking up the difficulty a little bit more. Sliders are a little wonky in this game. I generally understand them in most sports games, but like, this one, like you set it for a difficulty level, and then you go look at the sliders, and the sliders are kind of all over the place, right? You click it into custom, and the sliders all reset to 50%. So I'm like, so if I'm playing semi-pro, did they just all reset to semi-pro 50%? Like, or is there some like overall like slider score that's agnostic to like the difficulty level? And like if I start messing around with them, is it going to like really move the game around? So I haven't messed with sliders yet. I've tried to just crank the difficulty up a little bit more. FC25 has more granular difficulty levels than like your standard, easy, medium, hard kind of thing that you see in most sports games. Most sports games, I think now are getting to the point where they have like 4 levels, but like FC25 has something like 5 or 6. So, but yeah, in general, I'm having a good time with it.
Okay, so going from a good time, diving into the layers of sports, video games, and football, soccer, to a game that is a cinematic experience, but maybe not a good time.
What a miserable thing! It's kind of like Game of Thrones, right? You watch Game of Thrones, for all 7 seasons or however long, and you're just, there are moments of heroism, but in general, you're miserable, right? And same thing with Diablo. Like it's just a grungy, grimy world where everybody's miserable and everybody hates everybody, and that's like the Last of Us Part 2 too. So yeah, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with this game. I have Remastered on the PS5 Pro. I think I have a copy of Remastered from the Epic Game Store as well on PC. But yeah, I'm just going back through another playthrough of it, and and because I've already gotten all the misery out of that world, like it doesn't bug me as much.
Sure. Now you can experience it as a gameplay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I love the mechanics of combat in it and the context. We've talked on here before, the context variances that you see like in combat, based because now you're hitting a person, but they're in proximity to a wall. So like they bounce off the wall and ragdoll in a completely different way, right, than they do when you attack them in the open field. I also, at least at this point, because there's so many parts of the game that I've been through before, I also tend to not be, I don't want to say, not be as impatient, because the stealth sequences, like I kind of know enough about like what the patrol patterns of the people are that, I can hit the words. Like the first time I played the game, it's like sometimes you just sit there for like 5 minutes, right, watching the patrol pattern of an enemy before you make a move. And then even when you make a move, then you screw it up, right? So, but yeah, in general, I'm having a good time with this one as well. Plays great, smells great, tastes great, plays great right on the PS5 Pro. So yeah, good times.
So let's stay with another game that plays great on a updated system with Pokemon Violet on the Switch 2. Tao, you talked about this earlier in our Switch 2 coverage back in the release time with the patch that it got. You had finished the main story on Switch, on the original Switch, but you've gone back and continued to go back to it, it looks like.
Yeah, I had finished pretty much the main story. There was a tournament I had to do afterwards that I actually finished up on Switch 2, and that was pretty easy because a few of my Pokemon are pretty powered up, so I have pretty much was able to kind of just run through that. And you can do that like over and over now if you want to. Basically, just get money. Get pretty much money throughout the thing. When you do the different terror raids, you get like special items, treasures they call it, and you can sell that stuff. So I've pretty much that's all I've been doing more lately is the terror raids. They do special terror raids. I don't know how often because I've kind of just started doing them now, like just really getting into them. But they're shiny. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 altogether within the next couple weeks, or in the next month, I should say, that they'll do. Like a whole set of like shiny, I don't know if they're legendary or mythic or whatever, but special Pokemon that you can catch. So I've been doing those. It's a little different, I guess, from other raids they've done. Normally you just like, if you beat the raid, you can catch the Pokemon. Here they're actually setting like a community goal, like after I think it's 1 million battles that have 1 million times you've defeated this Pokemon, special Pokemon, you'll get it after a certain date or whatever. So I've gotten the first one, or I think it's the second one, because I missed the first one. So I've gotten the second one, and they're starting on the third one now, which I've battled a bunch of times. So I'll just go in there and battle it every once in a while. So I've been doing that. And then also just kind of continuing my shiny hunt, which is the kind of special Pokemon that are different colors of the base Pokemon, more or less. And, I've just been kind of doing that. And I've watched videos like of all kinds of different ways you can do that. And I don't know, man. I just have like the worst luck, the worst RNG in this game I've ever seen in my life. So I've gotten a few just from trades, some shinies. And I've only gotten one on my own, and that was I just happened to be rolling through this area, and there's like I was kind of like a horse type Pokemon. I saw it kind of all over the place, and then I noticed one it was a different color. I was like, oh wait a minute, that's one of them. So I was able to get that one. But doing like the methods that I've seen online, it's just like it just doesn't work for me. I don't know what's going on, but I just continue to try to do it, and I'm doing more breeding now also, which I think I mentioned last week, where I'm just you take Pokemon when you can do it either with one of each male female, or if you get a Ditto, which is kind of like it can do either sex, and you can kind of breed it that way too, as long as you have one of those. So I was able to do that. So I'm just doing that right now. And that's pretty much, other than Battlefield, that's pretty much all I've been playing this past week. Kind of jumped back into Fortnite too, the new season of that, with this kind of Power Ranger Halo theme, which is kind of weird. But kind of a bug invasion is on the island now, so I've been also jumping back into that every so often.
Nice. All right, gentlemen, we have come to the close of our show. We got to talk about some of the new releases coming up this week. I also want to give a thank you to everybody that came through the chat. Nate, thanks for being here as always. Soul Tech, glad to have you. And Brap, glad to have you back. So always appreciate everybody who has a chance to stop through, ask some comments, have some conversation in the chat. It's always great to engage, and we appreciate the perspective that everybody brings to this conversation. And if you're listening to this after the fact, we record on Sunday evenings, 8:00 Eastern time. And always glad to have anybody and everybody back and engaged with us. So before we close out the show, let's talk about what's coming out this week. We've got, actually, I'm going to throw one in here that's not on this list because of our conversation about game developer consolidation and the difficulty it is to find indie games and things that get lost in the shuffle. So I'm going to talk about a game that's been on my wish list for actually probably almost 2 years at this point. It's a game coming from Glee Games out of Cincinnati. It is Rah Rah Boom. So this is a 2D belt scroller kind of beat 'em up. Got some, I've played the demo. It's been a couple different times, but there's a demo out on Steam. It's coming this week on August 12th. Very kind of bright graphics, cartoony, 2D animation, good music, and good solid combat with combos in terms of a traditional kind of 2D beat 'em up. Also coming on the 12th, we get the Hellblade 2 Enhanced Edition that is coming for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. And then on the 14th, we get Warhammer 40K Dawn of War Definitive Edition. So a remaster release there on PC. And then, as we've talked about earlier, we get the full non-deluxe premium $100 version, the $70 version of Madden 26 on August 14th as well. Game Logic, Towmaster, anything else on your radar that you want to call out, or any final thoughts before we close out the show?
My final thought is there's a lot of lies on this list for me personally. Meaning, I am picking up Senua's Sacrifice Hellblade 2 for PlayStation 5. And I say I'm not picking up the Dawn of War remaster or Madden 26 for Nintendo Switch 2, but I have heavy FOMO for both of those games. So we'll just have to see how it goes.
All right. Game Logic, thanks as always for running the boards, keeping us honest, and for bringing the solid financial analysis that you always do. Towmaster, always glad to have you as well. And I look forward to your Pokemon breeding offshoot spinoff podcast. And it has been myself, DBQ Hams. This
my new cozy podcast.
Oh, yes. Yeah. When I hear about your ditto. Yeah. Woo. All right. That means we have come to the end of our show. This has been episode 399 for the week of August 10th. We'll be back next week. As I said before, we record every week on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So for myself, DBQ Hams, Game Logic, and Towmaster, play the games you love those you play with, and be kind to yourself. Good night, everybody.